Hey, so in this video, what I'm going to be talking about is weight loss versus fat loss. And what's the difference between the two and why you should care that there's a difference between the two. Because this topic is a crucial one. It's one where if you get the thinking and the thought process a little bit wrong, it can lead you to feel demotivated. It can take your progress off the rails, and it can kind of, in some cases, in the most extreme cases, kind of make you give up on the whole process because you feel like you're not progressing. Now, we are kind of conditioned to really focus in on scale weight. It's the one thing that people really hone in on when they start trying to lose weight, obviously. When they start trying to change their body shape and trying to change their body composition, they're trying to drop body fat, build some muscle. A lot of the things that they focus on really focus in around that pure scale weight. So if it goes down, it's great. If it goes up, all hell breaks loose, and that is the huge fucking disaster that you don't want. And God forbid it goes up for more than 1 or 2 days in a row, and then you're kind of thinking, well, there must be something wrong here. There must be something wrong with this diet. This guy that told me about keto, he must be wrong, or this guy that told me about calorie deficit, he must be wrong because my weight's going up and up and up, but actually I'm not seeing any progress, etc, etc, etc. Now, the first thing I'll say is that scale weight is a good measure of progress when you combine it with other things that are going on as well. On its own, it doesn't give you the full picture, and it can be misleading at times. So let's have a think about what actually we're talking about in terms of scale weight. So when you jump on the scales, and let's say, for example, I'm right now 85 kilos. If I jump on the scales tomorrow and I'm 85.5 kilos, then I've put on weight, but that's not necessarily body fat. And there is a distinct difference between the two, because let's look at what makes up your body weight. So your body weight is fat. It's your bones, it's your muscles, it's your organs, it's the water, it's everything else, the blood, everything else in your body is what you are measuring. What is your entire body weight? So it's not just body fat. So when you jump on the scales and there's a fluctuation, there's a whole myriad of those different things that could be fluctuating. Obviously, some of them aren't fluctuating at all, but there's quite a few variables and components within there that are going to be fluctuating on a day-to-day basis. And the fluctuations in body fat are never going to be huge unless you're absolutely mainlining a huge amount of calories every day. You're never going to see a huge spike in body fat specifically from one day to the next. More than likely, it's going to be a water weight fluctuation driven by a whole multitude of things. So you have to remember that there is a distinct difference between your total body weight and what that entails and what things can actually influence that versus how much body fat you have or how much body fat you're losing. Now, it is very difficult to measure body fat accurately. The only real way to measure it really 100% accurately is to cut yourself open and actually have someone look at it and measure it. But let's face it, unless you want to die in order to measure your body fat, you're probably not going to opt for that option, and I probably wouldn't suggest that to anyone. You could then go down the route of having a DEXA scan in the hospital environment, lab environment, whatever, but probably quite expensive for what it's going to tell you and probably actually not that useful. And you could actually kind of say that, well, does it matter what your body fat percentage is? A lot of people really hung up about, oh, am I 10%? Am I 11%? Or what percentage am I? Now, in the grand scheme of things, does it really even matter? I've kind of done a bit of a 180 on this. I used to focus on body fat percentages. I used to try and estimate people's body fat percentages via pictures and things like that. But actually, I've changed my thinking around on this in the sense that I think it's rather a futile exercise. It doesn't really have much merit at all. Because in reality, when you have a DEXA scan or something like that, usually you're probably about 5% out in terms of an estimation you made by eye. So let's say, for example, you thought you were 10% body fat because that's what you looked at on a picture or something like that. Actually, when you have a full DEXA scan, you're probably more like 15. So But if you're happy, when you look in the mirror and you said, I think I'm 10%, I'm really, really happy with how I look. I'm really, really happy with, the amount, how lean I am. I've got abs, all that sort of stuff. I think I'm about 10%. If I then took you to a DEXA scan the same day and had you scanned and you were then 15%, why should that make any difference as to how you feel about yourself? Because you were happy when you thought you were 10%, because you were just happy with the way you looked. The number didn't really matter. When someone then tells you, actually, accurately speaking, your total body fat is 15%. Now, that shouldn't then matter because you're happy how you look, if you get what I mean. But it's very difficult then to measure a body fat fluctuation. So you do have to look at scale weight, but then you're looking at progress pictures, you're looking at how loose your clothes are fitting and things like that. And those other measures all combine together to say, well, actually, I can visibly see I'm losing body fat. Are your waist and your hips coming in? And are you maybe losing fat off your tummy and things like that? So they're going to be key indicators along with scale weight to say, okay, am I specifically losing body fat? Now, when it comes to total body weight, really kind of understanding that helps you with the mental side of things. Of what I try to tell my clients is, don't get too carried away when you see big drops, and don't get too upset when you see a little bit of a spike, because those fluctuations are just going to happen. If you look at anybody's anyone who's stuck to a calorie deficit consistently over a period of time, the graph will go in a bit of a ski slope down. Now, within that ski slope down, you will see variations up and down, like a bit of a heart rate monitor going up and down. And that's just literally just probably water weight fluctuations day to day, moving around those numbers. But actually, if you probably were able to track the body fat accurately, that would be much more of a consistent and steady straight line down. So you have to kind of disassociate the scale weight with progress. For example, if it is you get a sudden drop of like 3 kilos overnight. Now, you didn't drop 3 kilos of body fat, so don't get too excited. Again, that's probably a water weight fluctuation. Likewise, if it goes 3 kilos up the other way, you definitely, unless you just ate, 10 times your body weight in food, you probably didn't put on 3 kilos of body fat. So again, don't get too depressed by those situations. Look at the weekly averages, look at the long-term trends. That's really what you're focusing on. Now, the things that can affect water weight and those day-to-day fluctuations are things like glycogen replenishment. So glycogen being the sort of energy store within the muscles, in the sense that when you actually start to replenish that, maybe have a few more carbohydrates, then that pulls with it. Each gram of glycogen has 3 grams of water. So if you start to replenish glycogen, you're actually pulling more water into the body. And that's not a bad thing. That's just what happens in the body. It's nothing to be fearful of. It's nothing to say, oh my God, it's water retention. Oh my God. It's nothing like that. You don't worry about it. But you are going to see a spike in total body weight from that point of view of just having that glycogen replenishment and having water come with it. That's just naturally going to happen. You've also got things like stress. So stress, in the stress hormone cortisol, if you are very stressed with it, be it financial stress, life stress, or just stress in terms of the stress you're putting your body through in terms of training and things like that, is that cortisol level could increase. Cortisol level could cause an increase in water retention, again affecting total body weight, but actually does not affect your body fat. So your body fat can still come down even if your cortisol levels go up. The other things that could impact it are basically food, digestion. If you've had a big meal the night before, that food's going to still be within your system at some point. It's not come out the back door or been used in terms of energy within the body yet. So that food is going to weigh something. And also, if you had like a smaller shit than you normally have, you've had a smaller wee than you've normally had. All these things, weigh different things. So it's very hard to keep these variables the same every single day. And they're the fluctuations that you're seeing on the scale, not actual specific body fat. And particularly for women, you've got the menstrual cycle. So when you're going through various different phases of your menstrual cycle, you're going to have higher water retention than at other times, which is going to affect, again, your total body weight. And you have to kind of, in that sense, almost look at that week of your cycle versus the prior month in the same week. So you can see, are you seeing a systematic reduction from month to month, as well as those week to week variations that you're looking for as well. So the key thing is really not to get carried away by trying to A, measure body fat in the first place, and B, not get too carried away with the whole scale weight scenario fluctuations from day to day. Understand that that is perfectly normal, 100% normal. You're not doing anything wrong. And obviously that is just part of the process where you are trying to reduce your calorie intake, and there are variables which are largely out of your control that are affecting your scale weight, really. So the main thing is just to focus on your calorie deficit. Obviously, if you're not in a calorie deficit and you're eating too fucking much, then yes, the scale weight isn't going to move and you're going to get fluctuations because maybe you're eating too much. That's a whole different ballgame. But if you are sticking to your calorie deficit and you are making sure that across a week, across a 2-week period, you've got a consistent calorie deficit, then you are going to be making progress with reduction in body fat, regardless of what fluctuations in scale weight may be telling you. So hopefully this helped you get some sense of scale weight fluctuations aren't necessarily a sign of you doing something wrong, even if they're going up consistently over a couple of day period. And also that maybe your attachment to the scale weight and attachment to body fat percentages really aren't necessarily that warranted or needed. So I would encourage you to look at lots of other different measures like pictures, how you feel, and how your clothes feel, along with scale weight, to make a good understanding of how you're progressing. So hopefully that helped. If you've got any questions, feel free to let me know, and I'll speak to you soon.